Russian officials say its forces destroyed dozens of drones launched by Ukraine over the Crimean Peninsula. And the nation's Ministry of Defense claims to have shot down 9 drones and used, quote, electronic warfare to suppress 33 others. This comes after Ukrainian officials said they carried out a, quote, special operation in the Russian-occupied territory.
Meanwhile, Russian President Vladimir Putin has made his first public comments following the apparent death of Yevgeny Prigozhin. Our Debora Patta has more.
For 2 months, Yevgeny Prigozhin was a dead man walking. He'd only just returned to Russia this week after crisscrossing Africa, visiting Wagner client states in a bid to retain his grip on his lucrative empire. But the one thing Vladimir Putin cannot forgive, he once said, is betrayal. The very word he used to describe Prigozhin's failed mutiny, it was treachery. Acknowledging the crash for the first time, Putin spoke of Prigozhin in the past tense yesterday. He had a complicated fate, the inscrutable leader said. He made some serious mistakes. A U.S. official has told CBS News the most probable explanation for the crash, in which the mercenary leader is presumed dead, was an explosion, possibly caused by a bomb. Bodies collected from the crash site have been taken for forensic identification. But outside Wagner's headquarters in St. Petersburg, battle-hardened mercenaries have already started mourning, some openly sobbing as they laid flowers. It's like losing a father, said this fighter. He was everything to us. And now they may have nothing. Without Prigozhin, the Kremlin will most likely attempt to nationalize his multinational criminal syndicate.
And the Institute for the Study of War believes Wagner will no longer exist as an independent paramilitary structure after what they say is Prigozhin's almost certain assassination by Vladimir Putin.
Joining us now is CBS News senior foreign correspondent Charlie Daggett in London. Charlie, it's good to see you in London, and you're usually in Ukraine, but I'm glad you're there in the friendly confines. But let's talk about what was surprising. Putin went so far as to call the Wagner chief talented, also referred to him in past tense. But what else did Putin have to say about the plane crash?
Yeah, well, welcome to the world of Russian power politics, Omar. Speaking in the past tense, he said he was a talented businessman, as you said, who made some serious mistakes in life, is an understatement. The Russian president broke his silence. It was a short speech inside the Kremlin last night. But I think we have to remember here that Prigozhin was, or is, a Frankenstein monster of Putin's making. So he may be trying to paint a picture of a businessman gone rogue. Putin also said that Prigozhin had made a great contribution to the Ukraine war, and it's a fact that he and his Wagner Group have played a significant role in Ukraine. But he started his statement by saying he wanted to express his sincere condolences to the families of the victims. He said a full investigation was underway without providing any more details about exactly what happened.
So right now, U.S. officials said that Prigozhin likely died in the crash, but they haven't given much information. What do we know at this point for a fact that that has actually happened? What can we confirm?
Well, Anne-Marie, I'm not sure what we can confirm, but according to U.S. officials, yes, likely died in that crash. His name was on the passenger list, but that doesn't necessarily mean or confirm that he was a passenger. We have learned that there was likely an explosion on that aircraft. Again, U.S. officials are saying this. It brought it down, killing all 10 people on board. Possibly, if not probably, a bomb, though not a missile strike, which has been widely speculated and reported. Furthermore, it was almost certain that Putin himself would have ordered something like this, although Prigozhin had many enemies among Russia's military elite.
And Charlie, let me kind of go on something you talked about there. You described him as a businessman gone rogue. Is this a little bit of let them hate so long as they fear? Is this a shot across the bow for other people who may be having some Prigozhin-ish type thoughts in Russia?
Well, it's certainly a message. You know, he has been a dead man walking for some time, ever since, a few months ago when he tried to push toward the Kremlin. And really, this is a push toward the Russian military, if not President Putin himself. But there were a number of Russian soldiers that were killed in that march toward Moscow. So he was already living on borrowed time. Now, whether or not this was an assassination, as we assume that it certainly is a message from President Putin, who was embarrassed, if not humiliated, that somebody like Prigozhin would have had the audacity to try to challenge Russian leadership as he did.
Now, it wasn't just Prigozhin that died. Presumably in that plane. I guess we got to keep saying that.
Allegedly.
Presumably in that plane crash, right? It was basically kind of the top rank of Wagner, the second in command who named the group. So we're talking about most of the leadership gone. Then what happens to the Wagner fighters? I can't imagine that just absorbing them into the regular Russian army is going to be that easy. I imagine it's completely different culture, completely different sort of types of training.
Rules of engagement.
Do we have any idea?
Well, Anne-Marie, I can tell you it won't be that easy, because I was in Ukraine when the Wagner Group was active in Bakhmut, and they pulled their forces back. Now, it was just before this march toward Moscow. So they will not fold easily into the Russian military, as it were. They consider themselves a cut above, and they put their lives on the line and lost thousands of people fighting on behalf of Russia, not with Russia, not side by side with Russian forces. So that's an open question. The Wagner Group is still active away from the battlefields of Ukraine, places like Belarus, parts of Africa, the Middle East. It is well funded. It generates a lot of its income from pilfering from places like Africa. Heavily armed, battle-hardened, tens of thousands in number. In short, clear and present danger. But they are fiercely loyal to Prigozhin. If they're now to be under Putin, they remain a threat. Now, Ukrainian officials, as Debora said, say that they are now an irrelevance to their war. Other Wagner leaders were killed in that plane crash, top leadership. So the future of Wagner is something the rest of the group itself may be questioning right now.
All right, Charlie D'Agata, thank you.
Thank you.